Welcome to Freelance Sucks. Here we discuss the dark side of freelancing about which nobody usually talks out loud. In this show, we speak with experienced freelancers, and I'm sure listening to their stories helps you prepare for freelancers' challenges. My name is Yuri, and I'm a community builder at Code Control and 9am.works, and my guest is Anna Burgess Yang, a freelance fintech writer, productivity geek, remote work evangelist, and 5am Writers Club frequent flyer who's passionate about educating and equipping people to feel in control of their workflows, careers, and work-life integrations. So, welcome, Anna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Let's start with the easiest questions, as always. So, the easiest question for you: what is the most challenging part of being a freelancer?
So probably the most challenging part, as many or if all freelancers will say, is varying income every month, right? I probably very few freelancers have exactly the same income, unless they just have only retainer clients and things like that. That's not the experience of most freelancers. Even if you have retainers, you could lose a client and now you've lost a chunk of your monthly income. So I'd say probably the hardest part is just managing my financial in the background to kind of keep things even keel, even when the income varies.
How do you deal with it? Like, what is your approach?
So I come from a banking background. I worked in banking and financial technology for 20 years, maybe. And so I every month I put money in three different savings accounts. I put money in one account specifically that's to pay myself for vacation, and also to cover a short month if I need it. I could pull money from that. I put money aside in an account to pay my taxes because that's a thing that freelancers also have to deal with is paying your taxes in
Yeah.
the US. It's quarterly. And then a third account for business development or learning and development, as I should say. So to be able to pay for continuing education, like taking a course or maybe joining a mastermind or something like that. That doesn't exactly deal with the whole varying income, but those are three things that are kind of irregular or not constant. And so I'm putting money aside to be able to cover those things as they come up.
How is your what is your percentage looks like? Like what percent you put where?
Um, I don't know off the top. I guess I don't do it by percentage. I do a fixed amount.
Mhm.
So I put 2,000 a month aside for emergency and vacation. I do like to take time off as a freelancer, but the way that I work, if I don't work, I don't get paid. So in order to take that time off, I do have to put a good chunk aside so that I can pay myself for those. And that's also building pretty hefty cushion for if there were something that came up where either I couldn't work or just a really short month, like I didn't have as many clients. It certainly has not always been that way, but even when I was a new freelancer, I was putting just anything I could afford aside to kind of help cover myself.
When you don't have clients, you finished working and you still are looking for another client, you are still constantly doing this marketing, you're still constantly doing content creation and stuff. But how do you plan for, like, what is your time period for finding a new client?
So I have an incredibly different business model than most freelancers. I do not work on retainers. None of my clients are retainers. All of my work is as requested and ad hoc, which
Mhm.
means that I will always take on a new client. Any client reaches out, I will take them on. And I tell them upfront, when you give me an assignment, I will schedule you in my next available slot. So
Mhm.
some clients have learned, give me three things at the beginning of the month. That way they can have guaranteed slots. Other clients are like, we don't know, we don't know. They'll give me something and be like, it's going to be 2 weeks. But that's the trade off of not having a committed amount of work. So, because of that, I don't have typically a big gap. There's kind of always a steady-ish stream of inbound inquiries, and they say, "Are you available?" Yes, I am. And I explain to them how I work. And because of that, I kind of have it's varying every month, but there's never a gap in client is done with a contract and a new client comes in. any client I have can end the contract at any time because all of the work is as requested.
What is the percentage between recurring clients and new clients?
So probably at this point, about 75% of my work is clients that I have worked with for quite a long period of time. Now, the amount of work they give me per month may vary, but they are not new, so I'm not trying to, show them what my work is like. They understand, and I understand their briefs and things like that. And then maybe 20% are new-ish or brand new.
What is the most time-consuming thing you must deal with as a freelancer, except for work itself?
Probably promoting myself on social media, which I understand is kind of a necessary component. And I do that because you could do one of two things. You could send cold pitches, or you could let the work come to you. I'm terrible at cold pitching, so I let the work come to me. And the way the work comes to me is being active on social media. So that is probably where I spend the bulk of my time outside of client work, is preparing, scheduling, posting things on social media so people can find me.
Is there a difference between posting and promoting yourself, or is it pretty much the same thing?
I don't like to be overly self-promotional. That is just my own personal preference. I post on things that I think are maybe relevant, interesting, for lack of better words, just interesting things. Every once in a while, I will post something about myself, kind of the work that I do, or the way that I manage client work. But I'm trying not to say, hey, come hire me too often. And I do have, some graphics that have testimonials from clients. I have LinkedIn. I've got a bunch of testimonials. So every once in a while, I will share those and say like, hey, the client said really good things about me. But I do that few and far between because that's just not my style, though I certainly think it works for some freelancers who may be a little more aggressive or kind of promote themselves and their work more than I do.
Do you have a content plan?
I do, yeah. I use Trello for project management, and so I kind of have planned out a giant queue of potential social posts, and then I typically talk around a few different themes, and I have mostly in my head, because it's just me, kind of a rotation for talking through those different themes throughout a week. So, I'm going to talk about this type of topic on Monday and this type of thing on Tuesday, and also varying text-based posts, video, image, like graphics, things like that. So I kind of have this rotation that I go through.
Do you check analytics?
No, I'm terrible about it. I go on vibes. I know that's like, will probably make a lot of freelancers go, but I do check like certain things I can see will kind of pop off and resonate with people, but I'm just interested in a lot of things and it works for me. And so I don't necessarily want to chase certain metrics. I want to appeal to a variety of people who might be interested in things I talk about, and it's worked. And so it's like, don't mess with success, I guess. But no, I don't do a ton with analytics. I could do more than I'm doing, but it's working.
What is the most nerve-wracking thing that you must deal with as a freelancer?
Probably unpaid invoices, which I'm sure every freelancer has dealt with, and needing to follow up with a client and say, hey, why haven't you paid me? And there's always a variety of excuses and reasons, and kind of escalating, being understanding, and then being more firm, and then saying, what is wrong with you? Why haven't you paid me? So that is definitely one of the most stressful parts, is, being your own collections agency on top of everything else.
How is your collection process looks like?
So it changed, but I'm lucky. Where I live in the United States, in the state of Illinois, just passed a law last year that I can actually send unpaid invoices to the state, and a client could owe me double the amount of the invoice without needing to go through a lawyer or anything like that. So that is enough. That threat is enough for a client to pay immediately, to tell them that I'm going to turn them over to the Department of Labor. But that is rare. There's only 2 or 3 states in the US that have that. Um, I had one invoice from when I was a very new freelancer that never got paid. It
Hmm.
was a small amount, and to pay a lawyer to go after it wasn't, I mean, it was terrible, but you know, what are you going to do? Like, um,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's, but usually I'll just kind of, before I would just kind of get, more and more aggressive. And I've been lucky that I've only had to deal with it a few times, but that is definitely one of the most stressful things.
If you have a delay in payment, but then client pays you and everything good, do you continue working with this client?
Um, the most recent instance, the client was late repeatedly. No,
Mhm.
I terminated the relationship because there was no good reason other than a cash flow issue on their end. So it was nothing to do related to my work. But I have been lucky that I mostly work with B2B clients, they're companies versus like I'm not working with individuals. And so it's not as much of an issue.
Mhm.
Um, so it just kind of depends. I've had clients that, kind of like always pay a day late or whatever, just because like they process it on their end and then it hits my bank account a couple days later. So it's always late, but kind of like, oh, it is
Yeah.
what it is.
As a freelancer, do you ever feel professional loneliness?
So interestingly, before I became a freelancer, I I worked for a couple, I've been a remote employee since 2006. Like before Zoom, before a lot of systems that allowed people, like before Slack, before a lot of things that allowed people to collaborate. Um, and that was just a professional situation where they let me work remotely. And so I'm used to
Mm.
connecting with people in digital form, whether it's chat messages or things like that. I live my life. I have 3 kids, so I'm kind of always bouncing around. And so I like the flexibility. And I'm used to just doing things on the go. Like, hey, I'm gonna reply to an email while I'm standing in line at Target, which sounds like terrible work-life balance, but it actually works for me because then I just get it done and move on with my day. So I don't really feel lonely. I'm in a couple of Slack groups and things like that with people and connect with other professionals, other freelancers, and that kind of, keeps me entertained during the day.
What are top 3 things you'd advise someone who consider becoming a freelancer?
Well, my number one, which I say all the time, is build systems early. Build them before you need them. A lot of freelancers don't think about project management when they have one client because they're like, well, I only have one client. I can just manage it. And then you're underwater and you're struggling to keep up, and that is the worst time to build a system. So build systems way before you need them. 2 would be self-promotion. Whether you want to call it self-promotion, just be active on social media unless you completely love cold pitching, which some people do. I'm not one of them. But to be active and to be consistently active. And so I even schedule my social media content out quite a bit so that if I'm having just a really busy week or a rough week or whatever, I don't have to think about it. It's just still going in the background. And also, this is hard for freelancers, but basically invest in tech early. And it's super hard in the beginning when you don't have a ton of income. And so you're like, oh, do I really want to pay $20 for this tool? But if $20 for a tool saves you an hour of time a month, to me, that's worth it because then you could spend that hour doing something else, doing client work, finding clients. Like I always think of the calculus of like, how much time is this going to save me versus
Yeah.
what is my time worth, even when you don't have a lot of income. And so I just really tell freelancers like, don't only go for the free tools. Think about like what's going to really support you and support your business in the future. Because, like, what if you start with a free tool and then it no longer meets your needs? And now you got to switch. And that's a really big pain. So it's better to just kind of like find the thing that's going to work for you and figure out how to make that cost work so that you can continue to build your business.
It's fun because previously people were thinking how to delegate some job to someone, but now it looks like there are so many great tools that you can delegate your job to a tool and be even more productive and save time with communications and save time with explaining what exactly do you need and come in with this back and forth of receiving the job. So yeah, I totally get it, but I still feel like it's so much easier to delegate something to a tool, at least for me personally, than to a person, because it's once again saves this commute time. And I wish to have the sky as a limit, but time is a limit. So the final question, if you were starting freelancing today, what is one thing you would have done differently?
You're going to hate this answer, but nothing. But, but I came from a tech background. I came from an executive team, and I was lucky that I was connected with a network of other people who were good freelancers, and so it kind of gave me some guidance along the way. So I don't feel like I made any mistakes, or there were nothing where I went back and I'm like, oh, this was terrible. Because I took bad work in the beginning, as every freelancer does, because you need to survive. I would never advise against that. I wouldn't say hold out for the great work or anything. What I would say, and this is kind of in the category of what would I advise the freelancers, but find freelance friends. And that would be the biggest probably game changer in what you do early is learn from other freelancers. And I didn't have a ton of freelancing experience. Well, none. We all start with no freelance experience, but I was connected to a great network of freelancers that helped me figure out pricing. Pricing is so opaque, like you can't figure it out. And so that helped me not make mistakes in the beginning.
And it also sounds like one more advice for someone who wants to start their freelancing career, go and join some freelance community.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And yeah, Anna, thank you so much for sharing your experience and for having such an open conversation.
Yes, I hope it's helpful for freelancers.
Totally. And thank you so much for listening. If you like the show, hit the like button, 5 stars, and share it with your friend. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.